Jung Min-jun stepped off the transport ship and looked around the human military base. The air smelled strange here on Kepler 442b. It was thick and heavy, nothing like the clean atmosphere on his home world of Zephyr Prime. He carried his recording device in one hand and his official orders in the other. The Zephyrian Council had given him a simple job: watch the humans fight. Write down what they do. Report back on their combat methods. The Council thought humans were primitive. They had only joined the Galactic Defense Alliance 3 years ago. Most species took decades to prove themselves worthy of membership. Min-jun walked toward the main building. Human soldiers moved around the base, but they did not march in perfect lines like Zephyrian troops. Some walked alone. Others walked in small groups, talking and laughing. This looked sloppy to Min-jun. Where was their discipline? A tall human woman approached him. She wore the uniform of a commander, with short black hair and dark eyes. "You must be our observer," she said. "I'm Commander Sarah Chen. Welcome to Forward Base Delta." Min-jun bowed in the formal Zephyrian way. "I am Research Officer Jung Min-jun. I am here to study your combat methods." Commander Chen smiled. This also seemed strange to Min-jun. Zephyrian officers did not smile when discussing military matters. "Well, you picked an interesting time to visit. We're about to face the biggest void swarm attack in this sector." She led him through the base. Human soldiers were everywhere, checking weapons, loading supplies, and talking to each other. Min-jun noticed they touched each other often. Pats on shoulders, handshakes, even hugs. "How many enemy ships do you expect?" Min-jun asked. "Intelligence says about 3,000 void swarm vessels," Commander Chen replied. "We have 200 ships in this base to defend Station Omega-7. Min-jun stopped walking. 3,000? That is 15 to 1 odds. "Yeah, pretty standard for us these days," the commander said. She did not seem worried. The other species handle the rear positions. Humans always get the front line. They entered the briefing room. 50 human officers sat around a large table. Maps and data screens showed the approaching enemy fleet. The void swarm was a mechanical plague that had destroyed dozens of civilizations. Their ships moved like insects, covering everything in their path. "Listen up, everyone," Commander Chen said. "The swarm will be here in 6 hours. Station Omega-7 is the key supply depot for 3 star systems. If we lose it, millions of civilians will be cut off from food and medicine." Min-jun watched the human faces. Some looked afraid, others looked angry, a few seemed excited. This mix of emotions confused him. Zephyrian troops were trained to feel nothing during combat briefings. An officer raised his hand. "Commander, what about evacuation? The civilians on the station?" "Evacuation ships can take half the population," Chen replied. "We need to hold the station long enough for 2 trips. What if we can't hold it?" Another officer asked. Chen looked around the room. "Then we make sure the swarm pays a high price for taking it." The officers nodded. Some gripped their weapons tighter. Min-jun saw determination in their faces, but also something else. They cared about people they had never met. Zephyrian soldiers fought to follow orders and protect their own kind. These humans seemed to fight for everyone. After the briefing, Min-jun walked around the base with his recorder. He spoke into it as he observed. Human soldiers show emotional responses to combat situations. This appears to reduce efficiency. They waste time on personal interactions when they should focus on preparation. He watched a group of soldiers near the barracks. One young man sat alone, writing on paper. Others gathered around him. "What are you doing, Jackson?" a woman asked. "Writing a letter to my mom," Jackson replied. "In case something happens." "Nothing's going to happen to you," another soldier said. "We'll watch your back." "I know you will," Jackson smiled. "That's why I'm writing the letter. She worries." Min-jun found this behavior wasteful. Why spend time writing when they should practice combat drills? But the other soldiers seemed to understand. Some started writing their own letters. In the weapons bay, humans prepared their equipment. Min-jun expected to see advanced energy weapons, like other Alliance species used. Instead, he saw a mix of old and new technology. Plasma rifles next to projectile weapons, explosive devices that looked centuries old. "Why do you use these primitive weapons?" Min-jun asked a sergeant. The sergeant, a woman with scars on her arms, looked up from cleaning an ancient-looking rifle. "Because, sometimes, primitive works better. Void swarm ships have shields that stop energy weapons. But a good old-fashioned bullet? That still punches through." "Your military doctrine seems random," Min-jun observed. The sergeant laughed. "Random? Maybe. But random keeps the enemy guessing." As night fell, Min-jun continued his observations. Human soldiers gathered in groups, sharing food and stories. They sang songs from their home worlds. Some played games. Others just talked quietly. This was completely different from Zephyrian military culture. His people spent pre-battle time in meditation and weapons practice. These humans acted like they were at a social gathering, not preparing for possible death. "Are you not concerned about tomorrow's battle?" Min-jun asked Commander Chen when he found her checking supply reports. She looked up from her datapad. "Of course I'm concerned. We all are. But fear and worry don't help anyone fight better. Then why allow such casual behavior? Your soldiers seem undisciplined." Chen set down her pad and looked at him directly. "What you call undisciplined, I call human. Those soldiers sharing stories? They're building trust. The ones writing letters? They're making peace with death. The ones singing? They're keeping their spirits strong. No. But emotions make soldiers weak," Min-jun said. He had learned this in basic training. "Do they?" Chen asked. "Or do they make soldiers fight for something bigger than themselves?" Before Min-jun could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the base. Red lights flashed. Soldiers dropped what they were doing and ran to their stations. Chen grabbed her helmet. "Looks like the swarm arrived early. You wanted to study human combat methods? You're about to get a front row seat." Min-jun activated his recorder and followed the commander toward the control center. Through the windows, he could see stars being blocked out by thousands of dark shapes. The void swarm had arrived, and the humans were about to show the galaxy what they could do. The space around Station Omega 7 filled with ships. Min-jun watched from the command center as the void swarm emerged from dark space like a cloud of metal insects. Their vessels had no curves or beauty. They looked like machines built for one purpose: destruction. "Contact report," Commander Chen called out. "How many are we looking at?" "Scanner shows 4,000 enemy vessels," a technician replied. "More than intelligence predicted." "Of course it is," Chen muttered. She activated the communication system. "All Alliance forces. This is Commander Chen. Take defensive positions around Station Omega 7. Remember, every minute we hold gives more civilians a chance to escape." Min-jun watched the tactical display. Zephyrian ships moved into perfect formation, creating overlapping fields of fire. The insectoid Kithara formed a defensive sphere, their ships moving like a single organism. The crystalline Nexari created geometric patterns that maximized their energy shields. Then he saw the human ships. They scattered in all directions. "Commander," Min-jun said, confused. "Your ships are not following Alliance formation doctrine." "No, they're not," Chen replied, watching her tactical screen. "Human ships work better when they're not predictable." The first wave of void swarm ships reached the outer defense line. The allied species opened fire with coordinated volleys. Their energy beams lit up space in beautiful, deadly patterns. The swarm ships responded with precise return fire, targeting the strongest shield points. But the human ships did something different. They didn't stay in formation. Individual captains made their own decisions about when to attack and where to move. Some ships flew straight at the enemy. Others circled around for surprise attacks. A few even flew backward while shooting. "This is chaos," Minjun observed. "How do they coordinate without central command?" "They don't," said Lieutenant Park, a young human officer monitoring communications. "Each ship captain knows the mission. Protect the station. Save the civilians. They figure out how to do it their own way." Minjun watched a human destroyer break away from its squadron. It flew directly into a group of swarm ships, firing all weapons. The enemy focused their fire on it, but while they were shooting at one ship, 3 other human vessels attacked them from behind. "That destroyer captain just sacrificed his ship," Minjun said. "Look again," Lieutenant Park pointed at the screen. "Captain Martinez is still there." The destroyer had taken heavy damage but was still fighting. It used debris from destroyed swarm ships as cover, popping out to fire before hiding again. The battle grew more intense. Swarm ships broke through the outer defenses and reached the station itself. Alliance forces pulled back to tighter formations. But the humans did something that shocked Minjun. Instead of retreating, they moved closer to the enemy. "All human ground forces," Chen announced. "The swarm has boarding ships heading for the station. Time to earn our pay." Oh. Human soldiers grabbed their weapons and ran for transport shuttles. Minjun saw the same mix of old and new equipment he had observed earlier. Some soldiers carried plasma rifles. Others had projectile weapons that fired metal bullets. A few even had bladed weapons strapped to their backs. "Commander, why don't your soldiers use standardized equipment?" Minjun asked. "Because different situations need different tools," Chen replied, putting on her combat armor. "A plasma rifle might overheat in close combat. A projectile weapon won't fail if it gets wet. And sometimes you need a knife when everything else runs out of power." "This seems inefficient." Chen paused while checking her sidearm. "Maybe. But it keeps us alive." Chen paused. The human shuttles launched toward the station. Minjun watched on the tactical display as swarm boarding pods attached to the station's hull like metallic parasites. The pods cut through the armor and deployed mechanical soldiers inside. Other Alliance species sent their troops in organized waves. Each species had their own section of the station to defend. They followed standard military doctrine. Establish defensive positions, maintain communication with command, and hold assigned areas at all costs. The humans did none of these things. Human squads spread throughout the station without assigned sectors. They moved through maintenance tunnels, cargo bays, and civilian areas. When they encountered swarm forces, they attacked immediately instead of calling for support. Minjun monitored the radio communications. Zephyrian forces reported position and status every few minutes. Cathera troops communicated through complex pheromone signals. The Nexari shared information through their crystalline network. Human communications were completely different. "Martinez, this is Rodriguez. Got 12 mechanical soldiers in Cargo Bay 7. Could use some help." "This? Could use some help. On my way. Jackson's squad is 2 levels down if you need backup." "Thanks. Hey, tell Jackson his mom would be proud. Kid's been fighting like crazy all day." "Will do." This casual conversation during combat amazed Minjun. Human soldiers shared information, but they also shared emotions and personal thoughts. They cared about each other as individuals, not just as military units. The battle inside the station became a maze of running fights. Swarm soldiers were fast and strong, but they followed programmed attack patterns. They expected enemies to behave like machines. Predictable, logical, efficient. Humans behaved like nothing else in the galaxy. Minjun watched security footage from inside the station. A human squad, led by Sergeant Kim, found themselves trapped in a dead-end corridor with 20 swarm soldiers approaching. Military doctrine said they should establish a defensive position and call for help. Instead, they did something impossible. They split up. Half the squad went up through ceiling vents. The other half hid behind cargo containers. When the swarm soldiers entered the corridor, they expected to find humans shooting from behind cover. Instead, humans dropped from above, while others attacked from the sides. But the most shocking thing happened next. One human soldier, a young woman named Private Chen, grabbed onto a swarm soldier's back and rode it like a wild animal while stabbing it with a combat knife. Did she just? Minjun started to ask. Yeah. Lieutenant Park grinned. Chen's always been creative in combat. The human tactics made no sense to Minjun, but they worked. Swarm forces designed to fight organized military units couldn't adapt to humans who fought like individuals while supporting each other like family. Commander, a technician called out. We're getting reports from all sections. Human forces are pushing the swarm back. Chen nodded, but her expression remained serious. What about civilian evacuation? First transport ship is loading now. They need 20 more minutes. Then we give them 20 minutes, Chen said. She activated her communicator. All human forces, we need to hold for 20 more minutes. Can you do that? The responses came back immediately. Martinez here. We'll hold. Rodriguez squad ready to keep fighting. Kim's team isn't going anywhere. Jackson says his mom didn't raise a quitter. Chen smiled. That's what I wanted to hear. Make them pay for every meter. But then the tactical display showed something that made everyone in the command center go quiet. A massive swarm command ship was approaching the station. It was 10 times larger than anything they had faced so far. Commander, the scanner operator said quietly. That ship has enough firepower to destroy the station in one shot. Chen stared at the display. How long until the second evacuation ship can launch? 45 minutes. And how long until that command ship gets here? 10 minutes. Minjun realized he was about to witness something terrible. The humans had fought bravely, but this was impossible odds. No military force could face a ship that large and survive. But as he watched Commander Chen's face, he saw something he didn't expect. She wasn't giving up. She was thinking. Commander Chen stared at the massive swarm command ship approaching on the display. Every military manual in the galaxy said the same thing about facing impossible odds. Retreat and preserve your forces for another day. But Minjun was learning that humans didn't read those manuals. Get me Captain Williams on the Defiant, Chen ordered. The main screen showed a human starship captain with graying hair and tired eyes. Behind him, Minjun could see his bridge crew working frantically. Sarah, we need to evacuate the command center, Williams said. That command ship will be in firing range in 8 minutes. How many of our people are still on the station? Chen asked. About 300 soldiers, plus the evacuation teams with the civilians. Then we don't leave, Chen said simply. Williams nodded like he had expected this answer. What do you need? Buy us time. That command ship has to be stopped or slowed down. With what? Our entire fleet combined doesn't have enough firepower to scratch that thing. Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled, and Minjun recognized it as the same expression he had seen before battle began. Remember the Titan incident? Williams grinned back. You want to ram it? I want to ram it with everything we've got. Minjun couldn't believe what he was hearing. Commander, you cannot seriously consider suicide attacks. That violates every principle of military strategy. Chen turned to him. Does it? Or does it violate every principle of how other species think about military strategy? She activated the fleet communication channel. All human vessels. This is Commander Chen. We have a big problem heading our way. I'm not going to lie to you. We can't outfight this thing with conventional tactics. But we can do something no other species would try. The channel filled with voices. Whatever you need, Commander. My crew is ready. Just tell us what to ram. We're not going home without our people on that station. Chen explained her plan. It was insane by any military standard. Human ships would attack the command ship directly, using their vessels as weapons. Some ships would target the engines while others aimed for weapon systems. The goal wasn't to destroy the massive vessel but to cripple it long enough for evacuations to complete. Minjun watched in amazement as every human captain agreed immediately. No debate. No requests for time to consider. They simply accepted that they might die to save people they had never met. "Commander," Minjun said, "this plan will cost many lives." "Yes," Chen replied. "But leaving will cost more." The human ships moved into attack formation. But it wasn't like any formation Minjun had studied. Each captain chose their own approach route. Some ships flew straight at the command ship. Others curved around to attack from unexpected angles. A few even used the station's gravity to slingshot themselves toward the enemy. The swarm command ship detected the approaching human vessels and opened fire. Its weapons could destroy a human ship with one hit. But the humans didn't try to avoid the attacks. They flew through the deadly fire, accepting losses to reach their target. Minjun watched the first human ship reach the command ship's hull. The destroyer Courage flew directly into the enemy's engine section and exploded. The massive vessel shuddered but kept moving. Two more ships followed. The frigate Determination crashed into a weapon battery, silencing dozens of guns. The cruiser Persistence rammed into the command ship's communications array, cutting off its connection to the swarm fleet. "It's working," Lieutenant Park shouted. "The command ship is losing speed." Live. But Minjun could see the cost. Half the human fleet was gone. The remaining ships continued their attacks, each one choosing to die so others could live. On the station, human ground forces faced their own impossible situation. More swarm boarding pods had attached to the hull, and mechanical soldiers poured through the breaches. The evacuation areas were in danger. "All squads," Chen broadcast. "Protect the civilians. Whatever it takes." Minjun monitored the security feeds from inside the station. In Evacuation Bay 12, a group of human soldiers found themselves outnumbered 20-1. Sergeant Kim's squad had been protecting civilian families when swarm forces broke through their defensive line. Standard military procedure said to fall back to a better position. Instead, the humans did something that defied all logic. They advanced. Sergeant Kim led the charge straight into the mechanical soldiers. His squad followed, using their diverse weapons in ways that shocked Minjun. Private Chen threw explosive grenades while firing a plasma rifle. Corporal Martinez used an ancient projectile weapon to shoot precisely at swarm weak points, while Jackson covered him with an energy shield. But most amazing was how they protected the civilians. Human soldiers put themselves between the enemy and innocent people. They took injuries that would have killed other species, but kept fighting. When Private Chen was knocked down by a swarm soldier, Jackson and Martinez immediately moved to shield her while she recovered. "Why do they fight so hard for strangers?" Minjun asked Lieutenant Park. "Because that's what humans do," Park replied. "We protect people who can't protect themselves." The battle inside the station became a running fight through corridors and maintenance areas. Human squads used tactics that no military academy taught. They climbed walls, crawled through vents, and hid in cargo containers. They turned the station itself into a weapon, using environmental systems against the swarm. In Section 7, Rodriguez's squad discovered that swarm soldiers couldn't function in extremely cold temperatures. They broke the heating system and opened the outer airlocks, creating a freezing trap that disabled an entire platoon of mechanical enemies. In Section 15, Kim's team found that projectile weapons could jam swarm joints if aimed correctly. They started targeting specific parts of enemy soldiers instead of trying to destroy them completely. "The humans are learning and adapting faster than any species I've studied," Minjun recorded in his notes. "They share discoveries immediately and modify their tactics in real time." Meanwhile, the space battle around the command ship continued. Captain Williams led the remaining human vessels in a final assault. His ship, the Defiant, was heavily damaged, but still fighting. "Sarah, we've slowed the big one down, but it's still operational," Williams reported. "And we've got maybe 6 ships left." "How much more time do you need for the second evacuation ship?" Chen asked. 15 minutes, came the reply from the evacuation coordinator. "Then give us 15 minutes, Chen said to Williams. "I don't know if we can hold that long." "You will," Chen said with complete confidence. "Because you're human." Williams smiled grimly. "Roger that. All remaining ships, form up for one more run. We're going to keep that monster busy for 15 more minutes." The last human ships attacked the command ship again, but this time, they didn't ram it. Instead, they flew around it in unpredictable patterns, firing constantly and forcing the swarm vessel to turn its attention away from the station. It was like watching dancers perform a deadly ballet. Each ship moved independently, but in harmony with the others. When one ship needed to reload or repair, another would draw enemy fire. When the swarm tried to focus on a single target, the other ships would attack from different directions. "This coordination without central command should be impossible," Minjun observed. "It would be," Lieutenant Park agreed. "For any other species." The swarm command ship grew frustrated with the small ships buzzing around it. It stopped trying to reach the station and focused all its firepower on destroying the remaining human vessels. This was exactly what the humans wanted. While the command ship fought the fleet, human ground forces completed their mission on the station. Every civilian had been evacuated. Every piece of critical equipment had been secured or destroyed. "All human forces," Chen announced. "Mission accomplished. Time to go home." The evacuation shuttles launched from the station, carrying the last human soldiers away from the battle zone. Minjun watched as the humans left behind a station that was damaged but not destroyed, with all civilians safe. But as their shuttle pulled away from the station, Minjun realized something important. The humans had done more than save lives. They had shown the galaxy something it had never seen before. A species that fought not for conquest or survival, but for principles. "Commander," Minjun said, as they flew toward the human fleet, "your people accomplished something remarkable today." Chen looked out the shuttle window at the stars. "We did our job. Nothing more. But at such cost. So many ships lost. So many soldiers injured." "Yes," Chen agreed. "But everyone who needed saving was saved. That's what matters." For the first time since arriving at the human base, Minjun began to understand why the galaxy whispered about these strange beings with such mixture of fear and respect. 3 days after the battle at Station Omega-7, Minjun found himself in a place he never expected, strapped into combat armor aboard a human assault ship. The Alliance had discovered the source of the Void Swarm's coordination, and the humans had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in galactic history. "You sure you want to be here for this?" Commander Chen asked, checking his armor seals. "This isn't observation duty anymore." Minjun had requested to join the assault team after filing his preliminary report. The Zephyrian Council was confused by his findings, but Minjun was beginning to understand something important about human warfare. "I need to see this," he replied. The target was a massive swarm processing station hidden in an asteroid field. Intelligence reported that it contained the central computers that coordinated swarm fleets across 3 sectors. Destroying it would blind the mechanical armies and save millions of lives. But the station was protected by automated defenses that had destroyed every probe sent to investigate. Other Alliance species had declared the mission impossible. Too many variables, too much risk, too little chance of success. The humans had studied the mission for 6 hours and said they would do it. "All right, people," Chen addressed the assault team. "You know the drill. We go in fast, we go in hard, and we don't leave anyone behind." Minjun looked around at the human soldiers. He recognized many faces from the previous battle. Sergeant Kim was there, her left arm still in a medical support brace. Private Chen had bandages covering plasma burns on her face. Jackson wore a replacement helmet because his original had been damaged by swarm claws. These soldiers should have been in medical recovery. Instead, they had volunteered for another impossible mission. "Commander," Minjun said privately, "these soldiers are injured. Why are they here?" "Because they're the best we have," Chen replied, "and because they won't let anyone else take the risks they've already survived." The assault ship approached the asteroid field. Minjun watched through the viewports as they flew between floating rocks the size of small moons. The swarm station was built into the largest asteroid, its metal structure growing out of the rock like a mechanical cancer. "Contact," the pilot announced. "Automated defenses are activating." The asteroid field came alive with weapons. Energy beams and projectile weapons fired from hidden emplacements. Mines, disguised as rocks, began moving toward their ship. The entire field had been turned into a maze of death. "Take us in," Chen ordered. The human pilot did something that violated every rule of military flying. Instead of following a planned route, he began improvising. The ship dove under some asteroids, flew over others, and even went through the hollow center of a shattered planetoid. The automated defenses couldn't predict where they would go next. "How does he know which way to fly?" Minjun asked. "He doesn't," Lieutenant Park replied. "He's making it up as he goes." This should have been terrifying. But Minjun noticed something strange. He felt safer with this unpredictable human pilot than he had with the most skilled Zephyrian aviators. The pilot's decisions might be impossible to predict, but they were based on instant reactions to changing situations. They reached the swarm station and found the docking bay heavily defended. Mechanical soldiers and automated gun positions covered every approach. A conventional assault would be slaughtered before reaching the entrance. "What's the plan?" Sergeant Kim asked. Chen studied the tactical display. "We don't have enough firepower for a direct assault." "So what do we do?" Jackson asked. Chen smiled. "We make them think we're attacking from 3 directions at once." The plan was pure human insanity. The assault team would split into tiny groups and approach the station from different asteroids. Each group would create as much noise and confusion as possible, making the defenses think they faced a much larger force. Minjun found himself assigned to Jackson's fire team. They landed on a small asteroid 50 meters from the station and began their approach by jumping from rock to rock in the low gravity. "Is this how humans always plan military operations?" Minjun asked as they floated through space. "Pretty much," Jackson replied. They reached their position and began firing at the station's defenses. 3 soldiers created enough noise to sound like 30. They used different weapons to make different sounds, moved between cover constantly, and even threw rocks to simulate grenade explosions. Meanwhile, other human teams did the same thing from different positions. The swarm defenses tried to track multiple threats at once and became confused. Automated systems designed to fight organized attacks couldn't process the chaos of human tactics. While the defenses were distracted, Commander Chen led a small team directly into the docking bay. They didn't sneak in quietly like special forces from other species. They ran in, shooting and screaming. Minjun watched through his tactical display as Chen's team fought their way into the station. They moved through the corridors like a storm, never stopping long enough for the enemy to organize a response. When they encountered heavy resistance, they didn't retreat. They called for support and kept attacking. "Chen's team is pinned down in Section 4, Park reported. "They need backup." "On my way," Sergeant Kim responded, leading her squad through the ventilation system. "Negative," came Rodriguez's voice. "My team is closer. We'll handle it." Minjun realized that the humans weren't following their original plan anymore. They were adapting to the situation moment by moment, making decisions based on what was happening right now instead of what they had planned hours ago. This kind of improvisation should have led to chaos and failure. Instead, it led to success. Human teams appeared where the enemy didn't expect them, attacked when defenders thought they were safe, and disappeared before counterattacks could be organized. "Jackson," Chen's voice came over the radio. We found the central computer core, but it's protected by some kind of energy barrier. What kind of barrier? Kim asked. The kind that stops all our weapons, Chen replied. Any ideas? Minjun expected the humans to call for heavy equipment or specialized tools. Instead, they began suggesting solutions that ranged from clever to completely insane. Try overloading the power grid, Rodriguez suggested. What about explosive decompression? Park added. Or we could just hit it with something really big, Jackson offered. Define big, Chen replied. Jackson looked around their position. They were standing next to a massive piece of asteroid debris that had broken off from their landing site. How about a rock the size of a ground transport? Minjun watched in amazement as the humans calculated how to use the station's own artificial gravity to turn a chunk of rock into a weapon. They rigged explosive charges to break it free from the asteroid, aimed it at the computer core, and then got out of the way. The impact destroyed the energy barrier and damaged the central computers. But it also triggered every security system in the station. Mechanical soldiers poured out of hidden compartments. Automated defenses activated throughout the facility. The swarm was throwing everything it had at the human intruders. Time to go, Chen announced. Everyone, to the extraction point. But as the human teams fought their way back through the station, Minjun saw something that changed his understanding of these people forever. Private Chen was injured by a swarm soldier and couldn't walk. Jackson immediately went back for her, carrying her while fighting off attackers. When Jackson was overwhelmed by enemy soldiers, Sergeant Kim's squad appeared to help him. When Kim ran out of ammunition, Rodriguez's team shared their supplies. When Rodriguez was injured, Park's soldiers covered his retreat. No one was left behind. No one fought alone. Even when the mission was complete and they could have escaped safely, the humans risked everything to save each other. This is inefficient, Minjun said, as he helped carry wounded soldiers to the extraction ship. You accomplished your mission. Why risk more losses for individuals? Sergeant Kim looked at him like he had asked why water was wet. Because there are people. As their ship escaped from the collapsing swarm station, Minjun recorded his observations. Human military effectiveness does not come from superior technology or tactics. It comes from their refusal to abandon each other. They fight not as individuals or as military units, but as a family. Commander Chen sat down next to him as they flew back to base. So what will you tell your council about us? Minjun thought about everything he had seen. The impossible victories, the creative tactics, the willingness to sacrifice for strangers and die for friends. I will tell them that humans fight with something other species don't have. What's that? Heart, Minjun replied. You fight with your hearts, not just your minds. Chen nodded. And that scares them? Minjun looked out at the stars, thinking about the implications of what humans could do when they cared about something. Yes, he said honestly. It terrifies them. But for the first time since leaving his home world, Minjun wasn't terrified. He was inspired. 6 months later, Minjun stood in the Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Alliance headquarters. Representatives from hundreds of species had gathered to hear his final report on human military capabilities. But as he looked out at the assembled aliens, he realized that his report would be about much more than warfare. Honored delegates, Minjun began. I was sent to observe human combat methods and report on their effectiveness. What I discovered was something that will change how we understand warfare itself. The hall was silent. Minjun could see fear in many faces. Rumors about human military successes had spread throughout the galaxy. Some species worried that humans would use their abilities to conquer others. The humans have won every major battle they have fought, Minjun continued. They destroyed the Void Swarm Processing Station. They saved Station Omega-7 against impossible odds. They have turned the tide of a war that was destroying civilizations across 3 sectors. Murmurs filled the hall. The crystalline Nexari delegate spoke first. Minjun activated his holographic display. Images from the battles appeared above the assembly. I initially believed humans were primitive because they showed emotions during combat. I was wrong. Human emotions are not a weakness. They are the source of their power. He showed footage from Station Omega 7. Human soldiers protecting civilians they had never met. Ships ramming themselves into enemy vessels to save evacuation transports. Soldiers carrying wounded comrades through enemy fire. Other species fight to follow orders, protect territory, or ensure survival, Minjun explained. Humans fight for principles. They fight for ideas like justice, protection of the innocent, and loyalty to their companions. These motivations make them unpredictable and unstoppable. The insectoid Kithara representative clicked her mandibles nervously. But surely their lack of coordination reduces their effectiveness? Minjun smiled, remembering Commander Chen's words. I thought the same thing. Human forces appear chaotic because they don't follow rigid command structures. But this apparent chaos is actually a strength. Each human soldier can make independent decisions while working toward shared goals. He showed tactical recordings from the swarm station assault. Human teams adapting their plans in real time. Soldiers making split-second decisions that saved missions. Groups coordinating without central command. Watch this carefully, Minjun said, highlighting a sequence where Jackson's squad improvised a solution to breach the station's defenses. No military academy in the galaxy teaches these tactics because no other species thinks this way. The vapor form Ethereal's delegate spoke next, their words translating as whispers. You describe humans as if they are superior warriors. Should we fear their expansion into our territories? This was the question Minjun had expected. I have lived with human forces for 6 months. I have fought beside them, eaten with them, and shared their fears and hopes. Here is what I learned about why the universe should fear humans. The hall grew completely silent. We should not fear humans because they are violent. Many species are violent. We should not fear them because they are skilled warriors. Other species are equally skilled. We should fear humans because they fight for reasons that have nothing to do with personal gain. Minjun showed images of human soldiers writing letters home before battle, sharing food with alien civilians, treating wounded enemies with medical care. Humans will fight to the death for people they have never met. They will sacrifice themselves for ideas like freedom and justice. They will refuse to abandon their friends, even when retreat would be logical. This makes them the most dangerous military force in the galaxy. The reptilian Saurian delegate leaned forward. Dangerous to whom? Dangerous to anyone who threatens the innocent, Minjun replied. Dangerous to oppressors, tyrants, and aggressors. Dangerous to those who would harm others for personal gain. He paused, looking around the assembly hall. But humans are also the greatest protectors the galaxy has ever known. They will die to defend species they barely understand. They will share their resources with former enemies. They will teach their military secrets to anyone who fights alongside them. Minjun activated a new series of images. Humans training Alliance forces in their tactics. Human engineers helping rebuild destroyed worlds. Human medics treating wounded soldiers from every species. In my time with them, I saw humans treat me as family, even though I was there to spy on them. They shared their food, their stories, and their friendship with no expectation of reward. This is not calculated strategy. It is simply who they are. The assembly began to murmur again, but the tone had changed. Fear was being replaced by curiosity, and something that might have been hope. Observer Minjun, the ancient Archivian delegate, spoke, their voice carrying the weight of millennia. What do you recommend regarding human integration into galactic society? B. Archivian 17-7. B. Archivian 17-17-7. Minjun had thought about this question for months. I recommend that we learn from them. Human emotional responses make them better warriors, better leaders, and better allies. They show us that feeling deeply about something makes you fight harder for it. He thought about Commander Chen, who had risked everything to save strangers. About Jackson, who carried wounded comrades while under enemy fire. About all the humans who had taught him that caring about others was a strength, not a weakness. The Zephyrian Council sent me to study human military methods so we could defend against them if necessary, Min-jun continued. But after 6 months with human forces, I believe the real question is not how to defend against humans. The question is how to become worthy of their friendship. The hall erupted in discussion. Some delegates argued that humans were too unpredictable to trust. Others worried about their military capabilities. But Min-jun noticed that many were asking different questions. How could they learn human tactics? Would humans share their knowledge? Could their own species develop similar bonds between soldiers? I have one final observation, Min-jun said, quieting the assembly. In my culture, we believe that showing emotion makes you vulnerable. Humans have taught me that showing emotion makes you strong. When you fight for something you love, when you sacrifice for something you believe in, when you refuse to abandon those who trust you, you become capable of impossible things. He deactivated his holographic display and stood quietly for a moment. The universe whispers about human power in fearful tones. But I have seen this power in action. It is not the power to destroy or conquer. It is the power to protect and inspire. It is the power that comes from caring deeply about others. As Min-jun concluded his report, he noticed that the fear in the assembly hall had been replaced by something else. Respect, perhaps, or even admiration. After the session ended, the ethereal delegate approached him. Observer Min-jun, would you be willing to arrange meetings between our species and human representatives? We would like to learn more about their methods. Similar requests came from a dozen other species. They wanted to understand how humans built such strong bonds between their soldiers. They wanted to learn tactical flexibility. Most importantly, they wanted to understand how caring about others could make you stronger instead of weaker. That evening, Min-jun sent a message to Commander Chen. The galaxy is beginning to understand. They still fear human power, but now they fear it for the right reasons. They fear it because you fight for things that matter. Chen's reply came back quickly. Good. Maybe now we can all fight together, instead of worrying about fighting each other. 2. Min-jun smiled as he read her message. This was exactly the kind of response he had learned to expect from humans. No pride in their abilities, no desire to dominate others, just a simple hope that everyone could work together toward common goals. He began writing his personal journal entry for the day. The universe fears human power because it is the power of love, sacrifice, and hope. These forces are more dangerous to evil than any weapon, and more protective of good than any shield. Humanity has shown us that the strongest military force in the galaxy is not built from technology or tactics. It is built from caring about others more than yourself. Outside his window, he could see human ships patrolling the space lanes, protecting trade routes, and escorting refugee convoys. They were still the newest members of the Galactic Alliance, but they had become its guardians. And for the first time in galactic history, the universe felt a little bit safer.